Hi there, I'm David. So, I want to tell you a little story today. Well, this is a true story. So, quite a few years ago, in about 2006, 2007, I started having more little health issues showing up. Now, I'd already been having some health issues for a while, issues in my back and my neck, but things started getting serious. 2007, I started having trouble initiating swallowing, and that rapidly progressed into weakness in my legs and swallowing issues. And I got very sick. And in their investigation, it actually took them 4 years to figure out what was going on with me. Actually, more than that. I wasn't officially diagnosed until January 2012. So in the course of their investigations, they discovered I had multiple autoimmune diseases, the worst of them being something called mania gravis that causes severe muscle weakness. Without treatment, it's often fatal, and I had an extremely bad case of it. By the time I was diagnosed, several things had happened. I had put on a bunch more weight. Now, weight is something I had been struggling with most of my life. I had gotten down to a good weight in my 20s, but it slowly started coming back on. And when I started getting sick, the weight started piling on real fast. So by the time I was officially diagnosed in 2012, I was in a wheelchair. I had already been in a wheelchair since 2007 at that point. And I was actually, by the time I was diagnosed, I was actually bedridden. So, I could get out of bed with assistance, and, my wife, and at first an extra helper could get me out to the couch. But I was pretty sick. I couldn't speak, couldn't swallow solid food. I weighed 540 pounds, and at 6'3", that's way too much. So, I was close to death. Couldn't walk, couldn't stand unassisted. The nerve conduction tests finally confirmed the severity. And they did some surgery. They did something called a thymectomy a few months later, which really did nothing. They had me on 19 medications. And I'm not really telling this story to tell you the stages of me getting sick. What I want to talk about is the complete alteration of my entire life. I lost all dignity. I had people helping me in and out of the shower, off and on the toilet. Couldn't wipe my own butt. My life was completely invaded. Lost all dignity, and fell into despair, absolute despair. I was in that bed for 10 years. And finally, I got to a point where I had to make a decision, because I couldn't take the darkness, I couldn't take the despair, I couldn't take the blackness that was just surrounding my life. The only bright spot in my life was my wife, who had by necessity become my primary caregiver. Her life was almost as hellish as mine. So I got to this point where I knew I couldn't continue on this way. I had to make some changes. So I was left with basically two choices. Either avail myself here in Canada of the MAID program, do it myself if they wouldn't, or find another solution. Now, that solution came kind of out of the blue. You know, the first thing that I had realized in this is I needed to get off all the pain medications. They had me so drugged up on hydromorphone and Lyrica and Dilaudid and Wellbutrin and just all this stuff, right? I was just completely out of it all the time. So I knew that was step number one. I wasn't going to learn anything. I wasn't going to be able to do anything until I got off of that. So that was step one. My doctor wasn't very helpful. He didn't want to write me a new prescription. He felt I needed to be on the painkillers. So I had to do it on my own for the first 6 months. And then when he saw I was serious and wasn't going to stop, he finally rewrote my prescription so I could finish tapering off. So once I did that, then I was able to start looking into some things and doing some research and remembering what I read and saw. So I realized that, you know, the next step I needed to lose some weight. Let me rephrase that. I needed to drop some weight. It's not lost. It's dropped and it's gone for good. Kind of a psychological trick we play with ourselves. So that was step one, and I tried various things. I tried plant heavy. I was eating about 80%, you know, vegetables, you know, like bowls full of spinach and lettuce and yellow peppers and green peppers and red pepper, you know, just endless. But of course I was drowning it in dips and sauces. So I was defeating the purpose anyway. But eventually I landed on keto, and I started to lose some reasonable amount of weight, or drop some reasonable amount of weight. And then I got stuck, and I just couldn't go any further. The rest of my symptoms, some stuff had improved, but I still had all the same autoimmune diseases. I still had the ridiculously high blood pressure. I still had, you know, a bunch of medications. You know, I still had GERD. I mean, the GERD was so bad it melted my teeth, and they had to remove the rest. You know, I got false teeth top and bottom. But I mean, that was just kind of the beginning. And as I started going through this stall, I stumbled across some new information, and I changed how I was praying. And the next day I found a video from Dr. Barry on carnivore, and it just clicked. It felt right, and it was like a solution sent from heaven. Discussed it with my wife. She was definitely against it because she'd heard all the same false dogma about nutrition that everybody's been programmed with. And she really didn't want me to do it, but I realized that it was the only hope I had. What she didn't know was that if something didn't work, I was going to unalive myself. So, you know, to me, there was no choice. It was fix it or die. And I started this carnivore diet. And things started changing so fast. In 2 weeks, all the swelling, pain, and inflammation in my joints were gone. I could actually see veins and sinews in the backs of my hands and my ankles and stuff for the first time in almost 20 years. And when I saw these changes, the change that came over me, you know, the lifting of all that blackness, the lifting of the cloud, you know, seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, it completely altered my reality. And it's been an absolutely amazing journey ever since. So I was going to show you a bunch of pictures that I've got printed out here, but it's probably easier if I just pop them up on screen for you. So, you know, just pictures of my progress, you know, starting from the wheelchair and 500 pounds down to where I'm at now. And some of you know that I just recently had neck surgery, in which I I healed in less than half the normal time. Expected recovery is 3 to 6 months. At 7 weeks, I was pronounced completely healed. Everything was fused, and I probably could have been fine even a couple of weeks earlier, but that was when I had the appointment for x-rays. So, I mean, the changes in my life have been immeasurable. Now, has it been perfect? No. You know, there's been some issues along the way, and I've had some emotional and spiritual issues that I'm actually working on right now to great effect, but that is a subject for a completely different video. So the reason I'm telling this whole story is I wanted to show anyone out there who's been suffering from intractable health issues that just don't seem to respond. Doesn't matter what the doctors try and do, all the medications they try, you know, nothing works, right? So I've been through this. I mean, I've dealt with medical issues my entire life, starting at about 8 or 9 years old. Well, actually before that even. I lost most of my hearing at 6 from multiple ear infections. Fortunately, I had a smart mother and got most of my hearing back. But the whole point of this is to show you that no matter how dark things look, no matter how much you think that nothing can change, that you can't get better because that's what the doctor has told you to believe. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's likely not the case. You know, I've been watching lately some of the celebrities, well, not celebrity, well, some are celebrities, some aren't, that are coming down with these autoimmune diseases and it's ending their careers. Or a good friend of mine, well, I shouldn't say a good friend, a friend that I used to know from church, who used to live up where I live. She moved away, and absolutely amazing woman. But I lost touch with her and didn't hear about an autoimmune disease called, what was it now? No, not something more. The body just gets stiffer and stiffer and stiffer and eventually ceases to function. Celine Dion has it as well. I mean, I'd love to get her the message about carnivore for healing autoimmune, but I mean, she's a celebrity, I'm a nobody. So, well, maybe not a nobody, I'm just not in her circle. So, you know, on that friend of mine, if I'd have known, maybe I could have saved her, but, or maybe this diet could have saved her, to be more accurate. Really nothing to do with me. I'm just a messenger. So what I'm trying to impress upon you is that if I could go from being bedbound on 19 medications and seemingly at the end of my life with no hope in sight, if I can go from that to this, and I'm still healing, I'm still getting better, I'm still improving, anyone can do this. Unfortunately, there is so much false and corrupt information out there about the nutrition system, about our Western medical system, that it's hard to overcome the programming that we grew up with. So I challenge you, if you can't take it anymore and you're desperate enough to try anything, give this a try. 90 days. You got nothing to lose but your bad health. If it doesn't work for you, or if you don't like it, you can't stand it, you can always quit. It's just food. But that particular food on the carnivore diet, meat, fat, and other animal products, it's very healing. It's what our bodies are designed to process easiest. It's the most nutrient-dense nutrition that we can consume. Absolutely incredible. Looks like I have a little visitor here. I don't know if you can see him on camera. If you can, say hi to Ozzy. So I want to encourage you to look to the future and look what could be possible. Don't just resign yourself to what you've been told. Look for another answer. I hope this gives you some hope. and you can always contact me. There's also a huge community out there on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram where you can go to for more information and more advice. And you can always come to me. I answer questions. I never charge to help anybody, never have, never will. You know, I may write some books and make money from that. You know, I may have a YouTube channel that will eventually monetize and make money from that. But I don't feel anyone who needs this kind of help should have to pay for it. Sorry about the light flickering there. I've never had this happen with this light before. Something's going on. So I'm going to cut it short. Maybe it's a hint I'm rambling on too long. So this is David Reed, also known as Fuzzy D, and we will see you on the next one. Bye for now.